I was at a friend's apartment in Tokyo last week, helping out with some casual dinner prep. He asked me to grab a bag of frozen edamame from the bottom drawer of the fridge. But the moment I pulled it open, I was met with a literal blue avalanche.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Dozens of those little gel ice packs. Some were these tiny squares from a high-end Ginza patisserie. Others were these, thick frozen bricks from the local supermarket. They just slid toward my feet like a miniature glacier.
I can picture it perfectly.
And my friend, he didn't even look up. He just expertly kicked them back into the drawer with his heel and muttered something about how they might be useful later.
Right.
And it's just this fascinating, almost universal sight across Japan. In a country that exported the life-changing magic of tidying up to the entire world, the freezer remains this lawless, cluttered zone.
An icy geological record.
Exactly. A record of every chilled dessert or supermarket run from the last 5 years. So when I asked him why he kept so many, surely 50 is enough for any imaginable emergency. He didn't give me a logical explanation about food safety or, thermodynamics.
No, of course not.
Instead, he just looked at the frozen pile with this mix of guilt and reverence and said one word: Mottainai.
And there it is.
That simple interaction just stuck with me. Why is it that in these hyper-efficient, often minimalist homes, the freezer quietly accumulates these frozen relics? Is it really about being prepared for a sudden fever or a picnic? Or is there a deeper, more emotional reason why throwing away a 5-cent piece of plastic feels like a personal failure?
It's definitely the latter.
Turns out, these tiny blue packs are more than just coolant. They're a window into a specific kind of Japanese anxiety, a lingering childhood nostalgia, and a just-in-case mindset that survives even in the smallest city studios. To understand the Japanese freezer is to understand a culture that refuses to let go of the automatic kindness of a stranger. Okay, let's unpack this blue avalanche.
It is an incredible starting point for a deep dive, precisely because that single word, Mottainai, it explains the entire compulsion.
Right.
It is the primary cultural force driving the refusal to discard something so small and, seemingly insignificant as a gel pack. This isn't just about common sense thrift. It's a profound systemic rejection of waste that is just built into the culture's operating system.
I want to start there then. Defining Mottainai. When I first heard it, I assumed it was just the Japanese equivalent of what a waste, like lamenting a spilled drink.
A very common assumption.
But you're suggesting that interpretation totally misses the deep resonance and the spiritual weight of the concept.
It absolutely does. The casual translation of what a waste captures the surface level regret, but Mottainai conveys a much deeper sense of remorse concerning the squandering of resources. Its true meaning has ancient spiritual roots tracing back centuries to Buddhist teachings. In these teachings, they emphasize the importance of using resources wisely and treating all things, objects, resources, and even time itself, with deep respect and consideration.
So the concept extends far beyond simple frugality. If I understand correctly, the regret isn't just about losing the value of the resource, but about disrespecting the item's very existence.
That's the core of it. Mottainai is rooted in the Buddhist belief that everything is precious and holds intrinsic value. And crucially, this belief extends even to non-living items.
To non-living things.
Yes. They're considered connected to the people who made them, the systems that delivered them, and of course the people who used them. When something is wasted or prematurely discarded, Mottainai expresses a genuine sadness over the loss or the severance of that connection between living and non-living things.
Wow.
It's a philosophy that encourages a mindful and sustainable approach to consumption, viewing every single item as a momentary loan from the universe.
That reframes the blue avalanche entirely. The ice pack isn't just plastic. It represents energy, time, logistics, and human effort. Wasting it becomes a form of spiritual negligence.
Precisely. And this philosophical underpinning is why the concept has gained global recognition. This is thanks in part to environmentalist Wangari Maathai, who popularized Mottainai internationally as a powerful slogan for conservation and the ethical reuse of resources. It gives cultural weight to the simple act of conserving.
And that leads us right back to the ice packs and the practical application of this philosophy. This fantastic anecdote about Mrs. Ito in Osaka really brings this philosophy to life.
It's a great example.
Every Saturday, she treats herself to a single strawberry shortcake. When she gets home, she doesn't just toss the tiny gel pack that kept it chilled. She spends several minutes meticulously cleaning the pack, smoothing out the plastic, and carefully finding a precise, archived slot for it in her freezer, a freezer already packed with dozens of similar packs.
She's curating them.
She is. She doesn't need it functionally, yet throwing it away feels like a physical sting to the heart. This ritualized preservation of a 3-cent item is a truly powerful illustration.
That story, which really captures the living pulse of Mottainai, demonstrates how a cultural philosophy translates into a systemic rejection of Western disposable consumerism.
How so?
For Mrs. Ito, the act of cleaning and archiving that tiny gel pack is a quiet, ritualized protest. She's treating a temporary, almost discardable item with the dignity of a permanent tool. If you scale this mindset across millions of households, what might look like individual clutter or fussiness becomes a powerful, sophisticated, bottom-up efficiency.
The idea is that waste is culturally discouraged long before it even enters the trash bin, correct?
Absolutely. Mottainai functions as a fundamental systemic anti-consumerist stance. In Western societies, waste management is often reactive. We deal with the garbage after it's created.
Right, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. In Japan, this cultural expectation creates a barrier to creation in the first place. You're constantly prejudging the value of an item before you acquire it, and certainly before you discard it.
And this mindset certainly manifests in the meticulous waste sorting rules that everyone has heard about. They are notoriously complex.
They are meticulous by necessity because the culture demands maximal resource utilization. Residents are expected to sort their trash into numerous highly specific categories: burnable, non-burnable, plastics that must be washed, glass and metal separated by color, textiles, and so forth.
And you have to follow a strict schedule, right?
Extremely strict. Missing the designated morning for burnable trash means you're keeping it in your apartment for another week.
Wow. The sheer complexity sounds exhausting, but what does it have to do with the Mottainai impulse to keep the ice packs?
It creates a powerful disincentive to generate waste. I mean, if you want to dispose of a large item like an old appliance or furniture, you often have to purchase a disposal sticker and schedule a specific pickup.
So you're literally paying a fee for creating bulky waste.
Yes. The cost, the complexity, and the sheer effort of discarding something heavily reinforces the Mottainai impulse to find a use for it or archive it, rather than deal with the bureaucratic hassle of letting it go.
The logical conclusion is, why throw away this perfectly good ice pack when it's functionally useful? And throwing it away contributes to the overall national waste burden.
Exactly. The system enforces the philosophy.
That's a compelling link. Let's look at the practical applications of this philosophy across daily life, beyond just the freezer.
We see it clearly in cuisine, a reflection of thrift and conservation. Mottainai promotes sustainability by demanding that every part of an ingredient be utilized to minimize food waste.
This isn't just about using leftovers.
No, it's systemic preparation. Vegetable scraps that would be instantly discarded in other cultures are saved for stock. Fish bones are lovingly transformed into flavorful broths. And even potato peelings might be cleaned and added to a stir-fry. It is an ingrained respect for food as a precious, finite resource.
I recall an example regarding water usage that is particularly striking in its resource consciousness.
Yes, the custom of reusing bathwater, or a furo. In Japan, the ritual of soaking in the bathtub daily is paramount, but its purpose is relaxation and spiritual cleansing, not physical hygiene, that's done thoroughly beforehand outside the tub.
I see.
Because of this, the water remains relatively clean. Family members customarily reuse the same bathwater for days, often only discarding and refilling the tub perhaps once or twice a week.
And even then, they don't just drain it.
Exactly. That waste not attitude means the water is often repurposed one final time to wash clothes before it's finally drained. It minimizes water consumption even in a high water use ritual, transforming a potential waste source into a multi-stage resource.
It feels like historical necessity translated into a deeply ingrained modern custom.
Historically, resource scarcity and density drove immense innovation in upcycling. Consider textiles. The tradition of recycling old kimonos into new functional items is a perfect example, predating modern sustainable fashion movements by centuries. This practice is known as sakiori or zanshi weaving.
How exactly did they do that? I imagine it was, quote, involved.
It was incredibly labor-intensive. When a silk or cotton kimono became worn or tattered, it was never simply thrown out. The fabric was meticulously taken apart, the threads separated, and then rewoven.
Wow.
Sometimes the old threads would be used as the weft, the horizontal threads alongside new threads for the warp, or they would be cut into thin strips and woven into sturdy, thick fabrics, creating unique, hard-wearing textiles.
So you'd get things like rugs and bags.
Heavy rugs, bags, and new clothing that often carried the history of the original garment within their pattern. This extends the lifespan of the fabric dramatically and is a powerful physical manifestation of the Mottainai ethos.
That's fascinating. The sheer effort involved in the recycling process makes the original item even more valuable because it contains the history of all the subsequent labor. And now this philosophy seems to have entered the digital age as well.
Indeed. Because of the complexity and cost associated with disposing of bulky items, modern online communities, the digital equivalent of the philosophy, have flourished.
Like online marketplaces.
Yes, communities like Mottainai, Tokyo provide platforms where people give away or sell unused items. They realize that even if the item is useless to them, it can still be a valuable, useful resource to someone else. And this realization is often triggered by the thought of going through the bureaucratic process of throwing a large item away.
What's interesting is how Mottainai connects to the broader Japanese paradox regarding clutter and minimalism. On one hand, the world idolizes Japan as the minimalist paragon. Zen gardens, Muji, Marie Kondo.
Right.
Yet, as the blue avalanche in the freezer shows, Japan is also home to serious habits of accumulation.
That paradox is absolutely critical to understanding Japanese domestic life. While the Western world focuses on the simplicity of the tea ceremony or the emptiness of a rock garden, the reality involves phenomena like gomiyashiki, which translates literally to trash mansions.
Trash mansions.
Residences so cluttered they spill into the street. And afuridashi, or spilling outs, which are these controlled jumbles of items piled up outside cluttered shops and apartments.
So, if Japan invented the global trend of decluttering, why are the Japanese themselves often so hesitant to declutter their own private spaces? I mean, who is Japan tidying up for?
The cultural critic Kiyoichi Suzuki challenged the Western obsession with Japanese minimalism, calling it a kind of Japanophile's dream. He argues that simplicity is fundamentally a luxury.
A luxury? How so?
Minimalism, like maintaining an immaculate, empty rock garden or building a small tea house, requires significant space and money. These are often the bailiwick of the elite. Cluttered spaces, on the other hand, frequently reflect the density, resourcefulness, and organic reality of life in small, cramped urban apartments.
That flips the script entirely. Clutter isn't a moral failure caused by a lack of will. It's an honest reflection of resource management and density, driven by the desire not to waste.
Exactly. And this brings us back to cultivating value. Mottainai encourages cultivating an emotional attachment to objects, resisting the urge to treat them as disposable based only on cost performance or modern aesthetics. When you feel that sense of regret, that loss of connection over wasting a 5-cent item, you keep it. The psychological return on investment for keeping the ice pack is far higher than the negligible space it consumes.
We've thoroughly established why the ice packs are kept.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about how they arrived in the first place. That automatic kindness I mentioned.
Right.
That requires diving into Omotenashi, the philosophy of hospitality.
Yes, Omotenashi is the source of the item itself. This philosophy explains why that 3-cent piece of plastic is given out freely and automatically, setting the foundation for the clutter in your freezer.
Define Omotenashi for us. We often hear it translated simply as Japanese hospitality, but how is it truly different from the excellent service you might receive at a 5-star hotel in London or New York?
The key distinction is in the motivation. Omotenashi refers to wholehearted hospitality, offered without expecting anything in return, rooted in sincerity and deep humility. The word itself is derived from motenasu, meaning to achieve something by using one's resources to bring satisfaction. But its deeper meaning is often linked to omotenashi, which literally means no front or no facade, reflecting the idea of welcoming others with a completely open and sincere heart, without hidden motives or the expectation of a tip.
But if a customer is buying an expensive cake from a Ginza patisserie, isn't there an implicit compensation structure involved? How does it truly escape that hierarchy of Western service?
That is a crucial question. In Western service, the objective is often monetary reward, or at least a positive review that leads to greater compensation. The transaction is paramount.
Sure.
With Omotenashi, while the commercial transaction is happening, the hospitality itself is offered voluntarily, aiming not for monetary reward, but to move the heart of the recipient. It seeks to establish an equal relationship of care, where the provider is using their resources simply to ensure the happiness of the customer.
And the distinction from just general hospitality.
General hospitality is about making the other person feel comfortable in the moment. Omotenashi takes a truly proactive stance. It involves anticipating needs, caring even in the absence of the recipient, and tailoring the care specifically to this moment, this place, and this person.
Caring in the absence of the recipient.
Yes. It involves constantly thinking deeply about the other person's future feelings. What potential trouble might they run into 5 minutes from now?
That concept perfectly describes the automatic provision of the ice pack. The shop isn't serving me right now. They are serving my future self on the train dealing with the summer heat.
Precisely. That tiny gel pack is a token of that deep thoughtfulness. In stores selling chilled items, staff will often ask, "How long will your journey home be?" They're estimating the time needed to maintain the merchandise's ideal condition, which is a reflection of the store's pride in its product.
And if it's a long journey?
If a customer says they have 2 hours of errands, the clerk might proactively suggest, then would 3 or 4 extra large ice packs do?
Why do they go to this trouble, especially for items that might only cost a few hundred yen?
The motivations are multi-layered, all rooted in this anticipatory care, or Omotenashi. Firstly, they want to ensure the customer doesn't hesitate to shop. If you know you'll get free, reliable cooling, you won't resign yourself to skipping the chilled food section just because you have other errands to run.
That makes sense.
Many high-end facilities even offer to keep your bought food in their own refrigerators or lockers while you continue shopping.
That's thoughtfulness that genuinely exceeds expectations.
It is. And secondly, the shop is protecting its reputation and the quality of its merchandise. Food spoilage, or worse, food poisoning, reflects poorly on the provider. Providing the ice packs, even when it's cold outside because interior spaces like buildings and trains are often warm, is a preventative measure.
So it's about the whole experience.
This dedication to the complete experience, even for a single slice of cake, exemplifies the quality of thoughtfulness that exceeds expectations.
The ice pack, therefore, moves from being a simple retail accessory to a social contract. And that provision feeds into the idea of a high trust, just-in-case society.
It does. And we see this beautifully illustrated in the story of Kenji, a salaryman, rushing through Shinjuku Station during a record-breaking heat wave.
Okay.
He quickly grabbed a cold tea and a sandwich from a convenience store. Without Kenji saying a word, the clerk, a young person working part-time, slipped 2 extra-large gel packs into the bag, wrapping them in newspaper so the cold wouldn't be uncomfortable to hold.
So that's the Omotenashi right there.
Yes. But then later that day, Kenji saw an elderly tourist looking faint on a park bench. Without hesitation or second thought about keeping them for himself, he handed over the still cold packs.
So neither Kenji nor the clerk had planned for that final exchange, but the service extra provided by the clerk became a bridge of communal care.
That is the essence of the just-in-case society we observe. The automatic provision fosters a high-trust environment rooted in mutual preparedness, rather than individualistic convenience. This is a society where the assumption is that we are responsible for each other's comfort.
So the ice packs are like tokens of potential communal property.
Ready for whoever needs them next.
And this approach to communal care is philosophically rooted in the core concept of iki, isn't it?
Yes, iki means character and heart, embodying sympathetic behavior. The sympathetic gestures of Omotenashi are designed to respect others as dignified human beings, making friends happy, treating people kindly and warmly, and doing so without causing a bother. These are the underlying principles.
Are there formal frameworks for teaching and implementing this sympathetic behavior in the service industry? It sounds so intuitive, but I imagine it's trained.
Absolutely. It is highly structured. Especially in fields dedicated to hospitality and personal care, they teach 3 core concepts that manifest the sympathetic attitude. These are often used as training benchmarks in settings like traditional inns or even care services like orphanages for children with special needs.
Let's break those 3 down, as they are crucial to understanding the level of care involved.
The first is Kikubari, which means paying attention to the little things, being observant of your surroundings and the person you are serving.
Okay, observation.
The second is Kikubari, which is thinking ahead, anticipating what will happen to someone, and taking preemptive action.
Thinking ahead.
And the third is omoyari, which is thinking from the other person's point of view, empathizing with their situation or needs.
So the clerk giving Kenji the ice packs, without being asked, was performing Kikubari, anticipating the future need created by the oppressive heat wave.
Precisely. And this framework is applied meticulously in service industries like the traditional Japanese inns or ryokan. The service is done wholeheartedly, kokoro no komada omotenashi. This involves every detail, from the staff lining up in beautiful kimonos to greet guests, to ensuring the correct size of yukata is provided, and even anticipating dietary needs before they are stated.
I understand the behavioral aspect is also highly regulated, especially personal presentation. How does one's appearance reflect Omotenashi?
It is integral. The application of Omotenashi relies heavily on appearance, behavior, and language. Appearance, or midashinami, is the first impression, and it must show good intentions and ensure the other person feels comfortable.
Which translates to some pretty strict rules.
Very strict standards intended to minimize individual distraction. We're talking about absolutely neat collars, properly styled hair, meticulously tidied nails, and often rules preventing male employees from growing a mustache or beard, even a thin one.
Why such scrutiny over things like facial hair or even accessories?
The focus is on modesty and decency. The underlying Omotenashi logic is that the appearance of the service provider should not draw undue attention to the individual or, more importantly, make the guests feel uncomfortable or inferior.
I see.
Wearing expensive or eye-catching accessories, perhaps a high-end designer watch or specific branded shoes, might inadvertently create a feeling of social distance or inequality with the guest. The provider must be a neutral conduit of service, not a spectacle.
So even something as innocuous as a shoe brand, if deemed too flashy, could violate the spirit of humility and sincerity inherent in Omotenashi.
It absolutely could. The goal is to maximize the comfort and perceived equality of the recipient. And this meticulous standard extends to behavior, the famous bow or ojigi.
The ojigi is iconic, but how does it function within the framework of Omotenashi in a ryokan?
It is obligatory and performed at every appropriate opportunity. It's a dynamic act of respect. There are degrees of bows, a slight 15-degree bow for passing a guest, a deeper 30-degree bow for welcoming or saying goodbye,
And a really deep one for apologies.
a profound 45-degree bow for expressing deep gratitude or making a serious apology. In the ryokan, the owner and employees will often continue waving and bowing goodbye to guests until the guest's vehicle disappears completely from sight.
Wow.
It illustrates both deep respect and the application of Kikubari and Omoyari in action, a final gesture that lasts even as the guest leaves their presence.
That level of anticipatory, wholehearted thoughtfulness makes it clear why the customer feels so respected and therefore feels compelled to take that small, thoughtful item, the ice pack, home, rather than treating it like discardable rubbish.
Yeah.
The kindness is too sincere to toss.
It closes the loop perfectly. The Omotenashi provision is too heartfelt and professionally delivered to be easily dismissed, which immediately triggers the Mottainai response to conserve and save it.
Now we move to part 3, looking at the consequences of all this saving. We are now talking about the Japanese freezer as the Galapagos freezer, a chaotic, sentimental collection that offers psychological comfort.
This is where we analyze the habit through the lens of microstorage and psychological security. Due to the high density of Japanese cities, homes are compact,
Very compact.
which creates an acute need for micro-collections everywhere. Rubber bands, soy sauce packets, plastic bags, and our inevitable blue friends. The freezer, being a relatively small, sealed, and often opaque unit, becomes the natural, specialized habitat for this species of just-in-case item.
And the items kept are not just functional, they are profoundly sentimental, turning the freezer into an archive of memory.
They are. We can contrast the minimalist, functional Canadian or American freezer, which primarily shows what you plan to eat next, with the Japanese freezer, which is an archive.
Right.
It is a chaotic, sentimental collection, a literal geological record of past desserts. It shows your consumption history.
Yeah.
And for many people, those gel packs specifically carry deep childhood nostalgia. Japanese children often treated these ice packs as a specialized kind of treasure. They're cold, they're squishy, and they were often used by parents as multi-purpose medical devices. Think of them as the go-to home remedy. Cooling fevers, soothing bumps and bruises after playing, or acting as magical, pliable cooling pillows during humid summer nights.
So that history makes them hard to throw away.
This weaving of nostalgia and utility into the item's history makes it extremely difficult to discard as an adult.
And for adults, that physical collection seems to provide a surprising sense of stability. I read a moving account by a man named Sato, living in a Tokyo micro apartment, who meticulously organized his freezer. Half of the space was dedicated to what he called his ice pack archive.
An archive, yeah.
He stacked them by size and color, creating an orderly frozen history. He noted that during the turbulence of the pandemic and subsequent global shifts, opening his freezer and seeing that orderly accumulated collection gave him a profound sense of psychological security.
That phenomenon is crucial to understanding the domestic logic here. The micro-stored habit, when viewed from the inside, becomes a defensive mechanism. In a world defined by constant globalized change and liquid lifestyles, the small, highly personal collection offers a way of maintaining a sense of control and homegrown logic.
So for Saito, those ice packs aren't just plastic coolant.
They are anchors of stability, a tangible record of small, predictable comforts gathered over years.
And this brings us back to the Galapagos syndrome, which often describes technological isolation. We can use it as a metaphor for cultural insularity in this context.
That is the perfect connection. The term describes the isolated development of a product or habit due to a deep focus on the local market, leading to a unique evolutionary path like Darwin's finches, evolving specialized traits on isolated islands.
It becomes a metaphor for cultural self-reliance.
It does. We see this most clearly in Japanese technology, where global standards are often bypassed in favor of local optimization.
Like the phones, right? The flip phones.
Exactly. The term was originally coined to describe Japanese 3G mobile phones, the Garaphone, or Garakai. These phones were technologically advanced, featuring things like mobile digital TV, early contactless payment.
Way ahead of their time.
Long before international models did, but they were built on highly specialized protocols that were entirely incompatible abroad. They were massive domestic successes, but failures globally.
And the same local specialization is seen in the automobile sector.
Yes, the Kai cars, or light cars. These are small four-wheeled vehicles with minuscule engines, specifically designed to take advantage of preferential tax advantages and lower insurance costs that exist only in Japan.
Right, for the narrow streets.
Optimized for navigating narrow city streets and fitting into tight spaces. They are hugely popular and profitable domestically, but their size and engine power make them irrelevant for export. The technology and standards evolved to suit these highly specific local needs and conditions.
So applying that to the freezer. Just as Japanese technology developed unique features, catering only to local needs and avoiding global interoperability, this micro-storage habit is a unique, locally evolved domestic logic.
Exactly.
It provides comfort and order internally, regardless of global pressure from KonMari or other minimalist trends.
It acts as a cultural fortress. The small, homogeneous space of the micro-apartment is defended by this meticulous, locally understood accumulation. The ice pack archive becomes an example of cultural self-reliance, insulating the individual from the chaos of the changing global economy and shifting Western design aesthetics. It's our way, and it works for us.
This psychological need for internal, private control seems to sit in stark contrast with Japan's famed public order. On the one hand, we have the meticulous care in Omotenashi. On the other, a reputation for extreme social control and cleanliness.
A huge contrast.
How do we reconcile the expectation of pristine public space with the chaotic private accumulation in the freezer?
That contradiction, meticulous public control versus chaotic private accumulation, is the unique balancing act of Japanese society. The tension arises because maintaining the ideal of social order often demands extreme measures, even if they seem to conflict with the spirit of Omotenashi.
And the sources point to hostile architecture as an example of this.
Yes, that's a strong phrase, but it applies. We're talking about urban planning designed to actively discourage certain behaviors, primarily aimed at preventing visible homelessness.
Okay.
We see examples of seemingly contradictory measures. The sources mention the use of subtle, often cruel designs aimed at deterring people from resting or sleeping in public areas. This can include surfaces designed to be uncomfortable, or in some extreme cases, pneumatic floors or the installation of irritating high-pitched noises in underpasses.
Wait, pneumatic floors designed to actively discourage someone from lying down. That seems incredibly harsh and counterintuitive for a culture rooted in such deep communal care.
It highlights a tension where maintaining the ideal of social order and aesthetic cleanliness often overrides overt individual aid-seeking or visible disorder. However, it's also important to understand the cultural element of pride and shame.
Right.
Homeless individuals often avoid state aid, not just due to systemic failure, but due to deep pride and a powerful cultural sense of shame. They often prefer to build their own meticulous, highly organized, swankiest shelters out of public view rather than ask for handouts.
So on the exterior, the city must maintain a facade of pristine order. And any deviation like visible poverty is met with strict, non-negotiable structural solutions.
Right.
But on the interior, in the private realm of the freezer, an emotional, anti-waste, just-in-case mentality reigns supreme, manifesting as clutter.
That is the core analysis. The exterior life is governed by the strict rules of politeness, appearance, and order, the expectations of Omotenashi, and the pursuit of social harmony. The interior life, symbolized by the freezer, operates by the unique, emotionally driven logic of Mottainai and just-in-case preparedness.
So the ice packs are where those two distinct, sometimes contradictory worlds meet and then crystallize into a permanent domestic feature, safe from public scrutiny.
Exactly.
We've journeyed deep into a small corner of the kitchen, moving from a simple blue plastic pack to Buddhist philosophy, high-end hospitality, and the nuances of density and social control. It's clear that this small item is a true lens into Japanese culture.
It truly is. That small plastic item is the perfect intersection of the three major things we've discussed that explain the blue avalanche in the freezer.
Let's bring those 3 points together for you, our listener, one final time.
First, Mottainai provides the ethical imperative. It is the deep-seated cultural wisdom and profound refusal to discard a usable resource, regardless of its size or monetary value.
That dictates that wasting something functional feels like a personal failure.
Right. Second, Omotenashi provides the mechanism for its acquisition. It's the wholehearted hospitality and automatic kindness that ensures you receive the extra item in the first place, anticipating a future need you didn't even know you had.
And delivering it with such sincerity that it's difficult to throw away.
And third, the Galapagos microstorage mentality provides the necessary psychological habitat. In compact homes within a homogeneous, rapidly changing society, keeping that archive of past comforts becomes a defensive mechanism, an anchor of stability and nostalgic security against the perceived chaos of the outside world.
The freezer full of forgotten gel packs is, therefore, not a sign of a failure to tidy up, but a quiet, frozen reflection of a culture that refuses to let go of small comforts and tokens of mutual care.
The greatest efficiency in this entire system isn't just in what is recycled in public, but in the cultural wisdom that makes even a 5-cent piece of plastic feel too valuable to throw away. It is the wisdom that recognizes emotional value is often far more powerful than monetary or logical value.